In previous seasons, we opened each show reviewing cases of girls who are currently missing that we call the Aisha Alert. In our third season, we've decided to switch some things around. We will no longer be adding the Aisha alerts into the shows, but will continue to post new cases of missing black girls on our social media each week. We encourage you to pay close attention to our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram so that you can help us help the families who are still seeking answers and long for their loved ones' safe return.
You are listening to Season 3 of Black Girl Missing, a podcast that covers stories of black girls reported missing when they were under the age of 18. When black girls go missing, their cases are severely underreported in mainstream media. We want to shift the narrative. We invite you to listen, learn, and do whatever you can to help us bring as many girls home as possible. Due to the sensitive and sometimes graphic nature of these cases, we advise you to use caution when listening.
Welcome back to Black Girl Missing. I'm Nikki.
I'm Asa.
And I'm Feminista Jones.
How we doing today?
Gucci.
Girl, we feeling free. We feeling black. We are just feeling everything wonderful that is just here. Yeah,
I love it.
People, right? Whatever that means.
We're going to lose a lot of listeners.
We are. God damn it. Listen, if you vibrating higher, we love you still. Welcome to Black Girl Missing. We're happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Indeed.
Welcome to Black Girl Missing.
Wow.
This is a true crime podcast about missing black girls ages 0 to 17.
We are in season 3. Wow. We're like halfway through season 3.
Love it.
What is happening?
Look at us.
Wow. Flourishing.
Who would have thought?
Love
Black
it.
Girl Magic.
Absolutely.
Hashtag Black Excellence.
I don't know why we got the giggles.
You know what? All right, and we're back.
Today, we are going to talk about Lashaya Stein. July 15th, 2016 was the last time that Lashaya Stein's family saw her. In the early morning hours, 16-year-old Lashaya Stein opened her bedroom window and climbed out. She was going to meet an unspecified individual and never came back. Let me just stop right there and remind everyone, teenagers do stupid shit. They just do.
So they saw her before she snuck out?
So her family didn't see her sneak out. I'm going to tell you exactly how they knew she climbed out of her window. She had a job interview the next morning, and her family went to go wake her up to say, hey, get up, you got your job interview today. And her phone went straight to voicemail when they tried to call her. And they tried to just look around the neighborhood, see if she was maybe at a friend's house or wandering around or, whatever. And they couldn't find her. They lived in a very residential area of Aurora, California. No, Aurora, Colorado. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
And it's a very residential area, not many buildings, mostly just homes. So when you live in a neighborhood like that, you do a lot of just wandering, walking, whatever, go to your homie's house or whatever. So they weren't really alarmed at this point. They're just thinking she'll be back. But then they see that she had been out of her window because the screen was up. Had the screen been down and the window was down, it wouldn't have looked so suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
So local police tagged Lashaya a runaway, and they weren't going to investigate, as they never do. Now, Sabrina, Lashaya's mother, decided that was insufficient.
I know that's right.
And she continued to search for her daughter on her own. Some families are not able for a lot of reasons. But Miss Sabrina said, I'm going to try to find my baby. With the help of the Polly Klaas Foundation, if we all remember, Polly Klaas was a young white girl who went missing around the same time as Georgia Lee Moses in California. Mm-hmm. And her family had money, and they founded the Polly Klaas Foundation to help find missing children. So Sabrina's case with Polly Class Foundation really consisted of them helping her with resources, paying for flyers and posters, giving her resources, making sure she knew some of the tips of, looking for a missing person. Lashaya's family began posting flyers of her around the neighborhood. The chief of police was actually on vacation when Lashaya went missing. When he returned a week after Lashaya had been missing, he decided to take a closer look at this very specific case. I don't know if it was intuition or just his gut or what, but he said, something's not right here. Let me take a look. The last sighting of Lashaya was on a surveillance camera walking near a bus stop in the 1600 block of North Peoria Street at 2:23 a.m. That's how they knew she absolutely walked away from her house on, by her own volition,
Yeah.
and that she was going to meet somebody because she was clearly going in a specific direction for a reason. Now, Lashaya left behind her clothes, her wallet, her money, phone charger, just, random things that, she would carry with her. And she has no history of running away. She doesn't get into any trouble. And she disappeared the day before a job interview that she was really excited about. So none of this sounds like Lashaya didn't want to come back home. Lashaya's family believes that she was abducted by sex traffickers. The reason why is because Miss Sabrina tried to do a little bit of sleuthing on her own with the help of her family, and it was suggested that she had been abducted by a man who is always with her, is probably controlling her, and seems to have no name. Like he's just this mystery man. Witnesses said that he claims to be a family member who is protecting Lashaya from her mother's boyfriend who was sexually assaulting her, which that would make sense. If I see you out and about with this man and the man tells me, "Nah, fam, she's good. I'm protecting her from so and so." Who am I to think that that's a lie? Like, why would I say that she's not being victimized by her mother's boyfriend? But here's the crazy thing about that. Sabrina said that couldn't be possible because she hadn't dated since her divorce in 2013. So this was years. There was no
Wait
boyfriend.
now.
It's just like virtually impossible. So
Wow.
in one investigative leap, Lashaya's family struck a deal with the pimp on the street who said he had information about Lashaya, but gave them this same story about this supposed family friend and this made up boyfriend. So apparently, this is the story that's being used by whoever may have Lashaya. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
There had been sightings of her reported in the Colfax Avenue area of Aurora, which is a seedy area where there's lots of drugs, lots of sex workers, lots of criminal activity is what they would normally call it. Witnesses state that a girl resembling Lashaya was being kept drugged and was forced into prostitution in that area. Now, the thing about sex work is uh, there's a very thin line between sex work and sex trafficking because
Yeah.
at any moment a sex worker can decide I don't want to do this.
Right.
And if somebody says actually you don't have a choice, well now they just became a trafficking victim.
Right.
And law enforcement doesn't see it that way.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
there's lots of sex workers who are actually being trafficked, and if they get picked up by police don't treat them as trafficking victims. They
Right.
treat them like
Mm-hmm.
they are sex workers who are, breaking the law, and they charge them with solicitation and all this other stuff. And then they put them back on the street. They're never safe. They're not safe in custody. They're not safe out of custody.
Right. Which is why so many people have pushed for decriminalization, because that's
Right.
better to help people that are being trafficked or abused or things like that, that they're not being penalized for the work that they're doing, but
Mhm.
that they can be, treated as victims of a crime rather than the criminals themselves.
Exactly. She There have been sightings of Lashaya in the Kansas City, Missouri area, which Kansas City, Missouri has a lot of trafficking activity. They've got lots of strip clubs. They've got lots of, it's easy to get into a strip club if you're underage in that area. It's an easy place to traffic if that was going to be something you were trying to do. There have been sightings of her in Kansas, New Mexico, and Arizona. Lashaya was an honor student at George Washington High School at the time of her disappearance. She had really, bright future ahead of her. She dreamed of becoming a nurse. She got an internship at the University of Colorado Hospital, and she is considered to be in danger, and her case remains unsolved. In November of 2020, Aurora police and local FBI followed a lead into the basement of a home not far from where Lashaya was last seen walking. This house is not far from where Lashaya was living at the time. For 3 days, law enforcement was seen entering and exiting the home with equipment that's used to break up concrete. There has been no follow-up information shared about that investigation or the family that lived there when Lashaya went missing, which tells me that they may have found something and they just haven't said anything publicly yet. I
There's
have
a strong
really,
possibility, yeah,
yeah,
because
And
they like
and
to
I've
cover shit up.
it's definitely connected to Lashaya's going missing, or might be.
might.
Okay.
But I've learned since we started doing this show that police being quiet doesn't mean that they haven't found anything. And that, sometimes when they don't say anything, it's because it's something that's so specific that if they mention it, it could, compromise their case.
Tip somebody off, yeah.
Yeah. And I understand. And police rarely do anything that they're supposed to be doing. So when they are doing something about a missing person, I'm more inclined to just let it play out. I really hope that there is an update soon about this case and then we find out what was going on in that basement. The house has been owned by the same owner for many, many years. So it's a rental property, essentially, because the family that lived there when Lashaya went missing is not the family that lives there now. But the family who lives there now is not being investigated in Lashaya's disappearance.
Wow.
So it's the same house. It's just a different family.
Mm-hmm.
The people who own the house have been very cooperative about letting the police kind of come in and do their thing. Agencies involved with Lashaya's case are offering a $15,000 reward. Anyone with information can contact the Aurora Police Department Crimes Against Children tip line at 303-739-6164, or you can remain anonymous by contacting Metro Denver Crime Stoppers at 720-913-7867.
Wow. Damn.
So when they said that Lashaya had been seen with this man, did they mean after she went missing or before and after she went missing?
After she went missing. So
Okay.
essentially, this is what the streets were kind of saying is that, so as her mom is kind of going around in these seedy areas and asking questions and showing people pictures, and I mean, like, down to offering people money for information. Like, I'll give you, $200 if you tell me anything. What do you know?
Okay.
Essentially, there are like a small strip of, small motels, things like that. And what's happening is people who say that this is Lashaya, they're like, she's drugged out, but she still looks the way she looks in these photos that Sabrina's showing. And they said she's with the same guy all the time. Guy never leaves her side.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing, with people with them being drugged out, that's exactly what they do, right? To these young, when they get them, they forcibly inject them with drugs and force them to become addicted in a way, and they use it to sedate them, they use it whatever, and so many times these girls be out of their mind. They have no idea what's going on in the world around them. And so Lashaya could be, if that's the case, if she was kidnapped and is being drugged up, she could be in this perpetual state of just lucidity, and just kind of like, I don't, like just kind of not knowing who she is and where she is. And that's got to be
Right.
frustrating, if you're looking for her and she could be right under their noses.
Yep.
But not have the wherewithal to be like, it's me. I need to get out of here,
And go home.
Yeah.
Right.
and go home.
And one thing that I think about when it comes to the prevalence of like fentanyl, opiates, just making such a huge impact on young people. Once you're hooked on that, well, now I want to stay wherever the opiates are at.
Right.
So even if she were to come to and say, I need to go home or I need to find my mom or whatever, she would know if I leave this situation, I can't get any more drugs.
Right. And
Or I got
even
to figure out how to get the drugs.
even if she was able to like fight off that addiction, her credibility is shot with, strangers because, oh, this quote unquote crackhead is just running up and telling me stories.
Right.
I just
The
want to
police
correct
wouldn't even help
myself.
her.
I said lucidity and I meant the opposite of lucidity. I just don't want people to think that I'm not smart. Perhaps that I am not under the influence of anything right now. But I just wanted to correct that. But you all know what I mean. That she could have some times where there's clarity, but most of the time she may not have that clarity, and kind of waffling in and out of lucidity is what I really meant to say. But yeah, no, this is. I feel like her story is representative of so many that we don't know about. Right. And especially now that I think of like with the pandemic, right? That is one of the things we talked about this, I think, briefly. And my fear during the pandemic is that as people become desperate for money, right? We've seen crime increasing everywhere, right? Particularly in some of the more distressed cities like Philadelphia, where the gun violence has gone through the roof because the poverty is so bad, and it was already bad. And even more people have been forced into poverty. Just kind of like, what are people willing to do to make money, and the desperation that can come into play, and people, willing to kidnap and sell and enslave people, and people get shocked and they get horrified when they hear about sex trafficking, but there are more people currently enslaved in sex trafficking now in the US than there were ever in the number of enslaved Africans, right?
Yeah.
And this is a problem. And the thing is that because it is mostly girls, that it is not something that gets, the attention and the forcefulness. But I mean, you can also think about then, because they knew that people were being enslaved, that African Americans were being enslaved and descendants, and they were just kind of like, sucks, but that kind of thing. And so there is very much that same approach. And there's also a threat to kind of, collective masculinity is like, we're supposed to protect women and we can't do anything about this. So it's better to ignore it. And then women who may have been sexually victimized in their own past, it's very difficult for them to get involved in that kind of activism. And then unfortunately, we have the folks who, they're so focused on promoting and supporting sex workers' rights, which is what they should be doing, that sometimes they can be dismissive of the very real issues that especially Black girls and Black children are facing when it's coming to sex trafficking. And I've gotten into a number of arguments with, like, say, white sex workers who I'm just like, you're ignoring something here, that we actually do have a problem, when 40% of trafficked children, whether it's for sex or domestic work, are Black in a nation where they're not even like 5% of the population. You know what I mean? Like, that's a huge problem. And I understand your advocacy as a sex worker. We are team sex work over here. But we also have to acknowledge that trafficking does happen and is happening. And it is disproportionately affecting our Black minors. So, that's my little soapbox thing.
And then, when we are talking about young Black children being victims of pretty much anything, there is this overwhelming need to rationalize it as they brought it upon themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Where's the empathy for Black children?
There's none.
Nope.
Right.
There is none. And I want us to, not us, but as a society, to pay more attention to, it's like, oh, well, they were a runaway. And if they didn't run away, then they wouldn't be going through this. Okay, but what were they running from?
Exactly.
I need people to start asking, what were they running from? Because it may not be that their home was unsafe. Something else could have been unsafe. There are so many things that kids can experience from the moment they leave the house to go to school till they come back. It could be bullies. There could be, predators, on the bus or on the bus stop or on the way to school. There could be teachers. We find out about teachers being weird all the time. There and it may be at home. We have no idea. There's also, this is, going to be more on the outskirts of what people experience, but there's also just myriad of mental health issues that these kids could be experiencing and don't know that they're experiencing because we don't talk about that kind of stuff. How many of these young people are developing delusions or are experiencing, active psychosis and don't know it?
Right.
They can't explain why they feel the way that they do. And if they're not acting the way their parents want them to, now their parents are just screaming at them.
Yeah.
Well, you're screaming at me. Let me just go somewhere, anywhere to get away from whatever the hell is happening right here. It may be a sensory issue. They may be on the spectrum. Like, there's just
It could
so
be a
many
lot going
different
on.
things
Yeah.
that we just don't consider. We don't let it be considered. We don't talk about it. None of that. And then when these kids go missing, it's like, oh, well, they were runaways and they thought they were grown and they fast and they this and they that. Instead of thinking that is a child, their brain is not fully developed and they need help. I really want us to get to that part of when we think about missing children, no matter where that missing child came from, it's a child.
Yeah.
It's a child.
Yeah.
Shit.
That's it. Bottom line. And I hate that, and we talk about this a lot, that like children are just seen as almost hindrances and liabilities, and condoms are right there.
Yeah.
Just don't.
You don't want them. There's ways to actively work to prevent that happening.
Our foster care system is disproportionately overloaded with African American children. And it's something that I think about at least once or twice a week, just like, why? And some of it is because of the racist system that we have, and there are a lot of children that are removed from our homes as an act of psychological warfare. It just really destroys their psyche and their families, and it's so disruptive. But there are many that are removed because they, it's their saving grace. And I just, sometimes we just got to take a moment to just, think about those children and who they grow up to be and the kind of supports and things that they need and how we can all just be better as community for these young people. Like, we're all we got. I mean, if our shows tell you anything, is we all we got. And we all could do better.
Absolutely. Well, if you happen to see Lashaya Stein, or you think you see Lashaya Stein, please call the authorities. Be good to each other, be good to yourselves, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Peace out.
Black Girl Missing Podcast is researched, written, and produced by 3 concerned Black women who want justice for missing Black girls. Today's episode was written and produced by Nikki Irene, and the Black Girl Missing theme was produced by Siraj Khalif. Be sure to follow us on social media. On Twitter, we are at BLK Girl Missing. On Facebook, we're at Black Girl Missing Pod. On Instagram, we're at Black Girl Missing Podcast. Visit our website for more information about each case, blackgirlmissingpod.com. Contact us on social media or email us at blackgirlmissingpodcast@gmail.com with any tips, feedback, or names of girls you want us to look into. You can further support Black Girl Missing by subscribing to our Patreon, where you will receive exclusive behind-the-scenes content and bonus episodes. Go to patreon.com/blackgirlmissingpodcast and subscribe today. We really appreciate your support.